The Garden Report is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
Hey, Buddy Manning here. Welcome to the Garden Report after a thriller overtime game between the Celtics and Raptors, capped by Jayson Tatum's game winner, what felt like the first game winner for him in ages, and it was, as our Jackson Tolliver told us, the first game winner, buzzer beater for Jayson Tatum since 2022 in that game one between the Nets and the Celtics. No Dalzell alongside. And it was an interesting play that they ran at the end of overtime. Brown was coming around the screen. Jayson Tatum has the ball on the right side. Brown kind of gets pushed down. You could see Tatum get a little distracted by it, and the clock starts running out, and Brown's no longer an option. Here's multiple Celtics and Joe Mazzulla explaining what went down there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a play that we run frequently throughout the game. I get a live catch. They play split action on the other side. Sam Hauser gets a lot of threes off that action. So we have different reads. The point guard, D-White, pops back for a flare, could throw it to him if I want to attack the matchup. So it's never like do this exact thing. It's just Joe puts us in positions and, just read what they give you.
We just wanted to get the last shot. We got some good action at a scrum. So that play was similar to the play that we ran where I dumped it off to Nimi, which tied the game. It was the same play as that.
Just one of our normal plays. We were just in a unique spot where there was 20 seconds left and you want to get a shot, and I just didn't want to dribble around and keep the defense static. So advancing it wasted some time, and then just running one of the actions that kind of gets some movement and has multiple options to it. So I thought it was executed well by the guys, and it was a great shot by Jayson.
So I feel like it was supposed to go to Brown, maybe a change of pace from the end of regulation when Tatum missed a mid-ranger, about as good of a look as you can get at the end of the clock in a tie game. He missed that one badly off the glass, but redeemed himself in a big way on a tough shot there.
Yeah, that end of regulation one he missed it by so much, but it's actually one of those shots that I feel like guys end up missing a lot because you're almost like shocked at how open you are, and it throws you off, and as you're processing that you're like way more open than you expected, you end up missing badly, and we see it all the time. But yeah, he got a second chance, and one thing that I've noticed is sometimes he gets the first game-winning attempt, and if it goes into overtime or whatever it is, Jaylen Brown will get like the next one, and so it looked like that's what was happening tonight. Obviously, Joe Mazzulla didn't confirm that there was a particular option, and that's because I'm sure there was a read to be made. But yeah, he kind of froze when Jaylen fell, and I think everybody thought it was a foul. And we certainly thought we were getting double overtime because in that position, it doesn't look too good for the Celtics to, he was in a pretty difficult spot there. But he was due for one because as much as he hasn't hit a game winner in years, he's hit a lot of clutch shots. And even this year, I think he's been really clutch down the stretch for a number of these games. So he was due for one to count as like an official game winner at the buzzer. And this one was as good as you can get.
So similar to the conversation we always have about him, I think it's that trade-off between him shooting a pull-up jumper, a tough one in that position, versus him getting downhill into the lane. And I understand it. They don't want to, in a tie game, go to the basket, turn it over, miss with time left on the clock. The Raptors did have a timeout there because of the challenge that they won. So they conceivably could have called a quick timeout if something went wrong inside and gotten the last shot of this game. But as Al Horford said, you didn't want double overtime in this game. You didn't want more minutes. They already had a split, Horford and Keita and Hauser and Cornette's minutes in that overtime period. So you were thrilled to see this game end here because it was getting dangerous. Raptors were pushing them all night, and Celtics essentially steal one here thanks to some Raptors missed free throws and Tatum's shot. But how do you feel about him in that spot right now? Because he takes a ton of them. His numbers, I think, actually rank decently among guys who take a lot of those shots. But in a tie game when he's launching it up, it feels like we see him miss it so often.
Yeah, I think there's always you always want him to make that shot, but the reality is that the more you watch superstars around the league, the more you realize this is not a Tatum problem, this is not a Celtics problem. I do think this is how the NBA approaches that situation. And maybe there's a new school of thought that's going to emerge in a few years, just as we've seen the game evolve so much over the years, where now you see guys crashing offensive rebounds instead of running back in transition. Like, that's an evolution of the game. I think we're going to get to a point where maybe guys are like, let's not do the fadeaway three at the end of regulation, at the end of overtime on a tie game. But that's kind of what you're seeing league-wide. Jimmy Butler takes those shots. Luka takes those shots. And most guys don't make them. It's a low percentage shot. It's why Tatum actually ranks decently among stars, is because everybody misses those. And so I don't think it's a reflection on him. Sure, I think it'd be fun if we could see other guys get a chance at it, especially someone like Derek White, who has such good late-game numbers. But I think he honestly got a little unlucky last year too. Like, he just was on a cold stretch where he just kept missing them, and so he didn't get too into it. I asked him post game about like how he felt in that moment, but I think you could kind of see when he was celebrating that shot, it was like a finally,
relief.
yeah,
Absolutely.
It's like it wasn't elation. It was like I was due for one and I finally got it.
Especially when earlier in the game you have that bad miss in that moment, and you could have conceivably lost this game off of having a golden opportunity there where the guy falls in front of you. And I think that's a good point, that sometimes you're so open in those spots that you're surprised. And he bricked it bad. So Tatum redeems himself. Celtics redeemed themselves. It was a tough game again, giving up 72% shooting in the paint. It's going to be interesting to watch against such a big interior scoring team like the Cavs, who are in here on Tuesday. It's obviously going to be a lot of focus on Tatum versus Mitchell, who's been incredible to start this year. Brown and Garland, it's those great star duos on both sides. And then Celtics vulnerabilities inside. I think you saw him in this game again. The Raptors didn't shoot really any threes in this game and still kept pace with the Celtics by just attacking the rim. Are the Cavs going to catch them weak here inside, you feel like, on Tuesday?
I mean, it's definitely where you want to attack this team. I will say Joe talked post-game. I think he felt like the 76 points in the paint was a little bit of a misleading stat because...
No surprise there.
I know, but he said like the floaters that, the total was hitting were not...
The shot put shots, yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, that's actually like, that counts as a point in the paint, but like, I don't know if I would necessarily... maybe we want to cut to that or not, but ultimately, I think this is going to be a weakness of this team. Opposing teams know that the physicality, they don't have their top rim protector right now. Al's still playing somewhat limited minutes. And Nimi's learning. He's had highs and he's had some lows, and these last few games he's certainly had some growing pains. And so Cavaliers have been playing phenomenal. I expect this to be a really good game.
Big plays from Nimi. Jaylen Brown had a big block at the end of regulation in this one as well. Just an incredible game, and going to be an amazing atmosphere on Tuesday here, I'm sure, where the Cavs could potentially enter TD Garden 15-0 and the second NBA Cup game for both sides as well here. Celtics need a win effectively to make this tournament. So we'll have coverage of it here. For Noah Dalzell, I'm Bobby Manning. Celtics escape with a win in overtime over the Raptors and move to 11-3 here. Check out Prize Picks. Use the code CLNS to get a bonus when you play a $5 lineup this weekend. And the Game Time app if you want to go on Tuesday to Cavs Celtics. Get $20 off with the code CLNS. Terms apply. This has been the Garden Report live from TD Garden. We'll talk to you on Tuesday. Hey, Bobby Manning here. If you made it this far, you probably enjoyed this video, so subscribe, turn on notifications, and check out our social media platforms at Celtics CLNS.